I'm going to start off with my reminiscences from the Wapping Dispute, because I went to quite a few of the demonstrations, and I've got quite a funny story for you. And even old punk rockers have to wear these occasionally. I joined the demonstrations in Wapping and saw the brutality at first hand. Not only was I angered beyond belief at the brazen connivance of Thatcher's government and Murdoch, the fact that my granddad had been a printer gave me some sort of vague connection as well. Police charging, battering, brutalising and arresting peaceful demonstrators, women as well as men, denying local residents access to their own homes and towing legally parked cars out of the way so that Murdoch's distribution lorries were able to drive away from the plant at a ludicrously dangerous speed down the narrow streets to get the papers out to their outlets. The open partisanship of the police at Wapping was evident. It was class war. They were there fighting for Murdoch and Thatcher, and many of them thoroughly enjoyed doing so. The aim of the demonstrators was to try and stop the scab labour, both print workers and journalists, like Gary Bushell for instance, from getting into the plant, and to block the lorries carrying newspapers getting out. There were several different exits from which the lorries could leave, and demonstrators were constantly trying to work out which one was going to be used next. Thereby hangs a rather amusing story. My former partner, Joy, had a long and successful career as a journalist and editor, and was firmly on the side of the print workers. She was not, however, somebody to end up at the bottom of a scrum being battered by police. When I told her what was happening at the demonstration, she decided to drive us over there so she could see for herself. Despite my protestations that the place was a bloody fortress surrounded by hordes of rabid police, perfectly happy to attack anything that moved. We skirted around the plant for a bit, and sure enough, arrived at a solid blue wall bristling with hostility and gesturing vigorously for her to turn round and go back from whence she came. Joy held her ground. She was made of sterner stuff. One of the more senior policemen approached. As far as I can remember, matters proceeded roughly like this. I kept quiet and covered up my anti-Murdoch badge. She put on her most authoritative editor's voice. "Excuse me, officer, I'm not quite sure where I am. I'm supposed to be having a meeting at the News International Club, and I don't know where to go. Could you direct me, please? Have you got any accreditations?" "I'm sorry, officer, no, I had no idea that all this trouble was going on, or that I'd need any." No idea how she got away with it, but confronted by the very polite but firm-sounding middle-class lady in a Volkswagen Golf, the policeman was taken in. The blue line parted, and we were driving down the main thoroughfare where the lorries left from. Pickets were everywhere, trying to spot the lorries coming out so they could block their way. So, of course, were police. For a mad few minutes, we drove up and down the line. Every time we saw a lorry about to emerge, Joy would drive up to the nearest lot of pickets, and I'd point the relevant entrance out to them. I can still remember pickets cheering as we drove past. The police eventually cottoned on, of course, and we managed to drive off before they stopped us. If they had done, it would have been interesting to have seen their attempts to make a charge turn up in court. Although I'm sure Thatcher and Murdoch's pet police would have tried to prove that it was, driving up and down the public highway is not yet a criminal offence. Cheers. Now here is the piece which I wrote after Rupert Murdoch. It was about the same time that Rupert Murdoch's tentacles, I use that word carefully, managed to gain control of the company which has the right to print the Bible in the UK, William Collins. So I thought, given that Murdoch is Midas in reverse, everything he touches turns to shit, that there would very soon be a new revised version of the Bible, and I have it for you now, the Bible according to Rupert Murdoch. "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was gotcha! And Lord Rupert said, let there be a royal family, and let enormous quantities of trivia and drivel be written about them, yea, even unto the point where a mentally subnormal yak couldn't possibly find it interesting anymore. And let babies be born unto this royal family. Let the huge swathes of sycophantic, nauseating sludge written about them surpass even that written about their parents, even though these babies and their parents are about as interesting as a wet afternoon on the terraces at Selhurst Park." And the Lord Rupert said, let there be soap operas. And let each of these soap operas be so mind-numbingly moronic as to make a wet afternoon at Selhurst Park seem a truly uplifting experience. And let entire forests and the ecological balance of several continents be destroyed in the endless vistas of retarded outpourings about these unspeakable transmissions. And let there be enormous breasts, and endless bonking, and hours and days and weeks and months and years of chauvinistic right-wing propaganda, so that the brain-dead prats who like the bonking and the soap operas and the breasts and the royal stories get the politics as well. And let any journalist who tries to stand up to the proprietor and editor in the name of truth and intelligence and integrity and journalistic standards be summarily dismissed and cast forever into a bottomless pit of decomposing chimpanzee smegma. And let those journalists who suffer this fate rejoice at the great career move they have just made. And the Lord Rupert looked at his work And even he saw that it was a load of crap. But this was the enterprise culture, and it sold millions, so it was good. And on the same basis, he decided to take over the television too. And the earth itself wept. And little robins vomited. And cuddly, furry animals threw themselves under trains. And the whole thing was filmed by Sky Channel for a horror nature programme. And the most awful thing of all was that this was just the beginning. Cheers. Because I'm on my way to watch the mighty Brighton Wapping Football Club, having cycled from Southwick, I'm going to cycle to Falmouth, which some of us still call it, rather than the corporate name which it now has. I haven't brought my mandola with me, so this is going to be a cappella. You're welcome to join in. Some of you won't have joined in on a song like this before, so just imagine you're a funny kind of folk club. This is The Ragged Trouser Philanthropist, my favourite book of all time, The Ragged Trouser Philanthropist by Robert Tress. I'm sure everybody here has read it. If you haven't, obviously you should. So this is The Ragged Trouser Philanthropist's lament, because obviously a few years ago, the bankers were wrecking the economy. What the Ragged Trouser Philanthropists were most concerned about was whether or not the Sun was going to print a picture of Prince Harry in the nude on the front cover. And this is The Ragged Trouser Philanthropist's lament. It goes like this. Give Hester and Diamond their bonus. They deserve it, they do a good job. I want workhouses for the dog scroungers and a picture of Prince Harry's knob. I work for my gaffer for nothing. I'm grateful he gives me a job. I'd swap all your bloody trade unions for a picture of Prince Harry's knob. His knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. His knob, his knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. The country, it just can't afford it. Those strikers, they're all rent a mob. They should all doff their caps and be happy with a picture of Prince Harry's knob. So give me your bleeding heart lecture, you middle-class guardian snob, because some of us live in the real world with a picture of Prince Harry's knob. His knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. His knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. You lefties and loonies and liberals, it's time you shut your bloody gob, because all that the likes of me ask for is a picture of Prince Harry's knob. I'm penniless, hapless and hopeless, and the state of my health makes me sob, but I'll work like a slave for my betters with my picture of Prince Harry's knob. His knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. His knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. One more time. His knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. His knob, a picture of Prince Harry's knob. Yes, I'll read The Sun and I'll believe it with my picture of Prince Harry's knob. Cheers. Well, now, obviously, the printers' strike came just after the miners' strike, and it was as a result of the defeat of the working class in those two disputes. That was the beginning, I don't need to tell any of you, of what happened next and what's happening now. And I wrote this for the Aubrey Truth and Justice campaign. I was privileged to be asked to do many gigs during the strike and many gigs for the commemoration 30 years on. I'm at the With Banners Held High commemoration in Wakefield next month with the Farm and the Hurriers and many other people, and I did loads last year, and I performed at Easington Colliery Club on the day of Thatcher's funeral. That was fun. But I wrote this for the Aubrey Truth and Justice campaign. It's called Never Forget. I remember my stepfather moaning in the first strike in '72. Miners holding the country to ransom. I was 14. I thought about you. You worked underground, often in danger. Hewed the coal we depended upon. He earned more checking tax forms in Brighton. I knew then just whose side I was on. I remember Kent pickets at Shoreham when our port bosses shipped in scab coal. By the time they were back, 12 years later, a new anger burned deep in my soul. You'd won once, but this time would be harder, for your foe was no bumbling Heath. It was Thatcher, revenge her agenda, a class warrior armed to the teeth. You were miners on strike for your future, for your pits, your communities, ways. We were punks, poets, anarchists, lesbians, theatre groups, Rastafarians, gays, different worlds in a rainbow alliance, fired up and determined to win. And Thatcher lumped us all together, punk or minor, the enemy within. As a poet, I crisscrossed the country, from Durham to Yorkshire to Kent, doing benefits, arguing, learning, raising funds that were so quickly spent, playing a tiny role in that great battle which you fought so hard and to the last. A battle so proudly remembered, now that 30 long years have gone past. I remember those pictures from Auckland, police faces contorted with hate, the communities brutalised, battered by the raw, naked power of the state. If it took guns and tanks to defeat you, she'd used guns and tanks on you too. The veneer of democracy shattered, the hired thugs of the privileged few. After Orgreave came Wapping, then Hillsborough. With the press and police on her side, Thatcher smiled as the printers were beaten and those 96 football fans died. She had a quite brazen agenda, summed up perfectly well when she said that there's no such thing as a society. Don't blame us for being glad that she's dead. Now the bankers destroy the economy, and the poor and the sick get the blame. And our once proud and strong labour movement is shackled and timid and tame. But this poet will always remember the brave men and women I met. We will carry on fighting for justice, and will never, no never, forget. Cheers. One more short, but this is my autobiography, which the lady comrade was talking about earlier, which indeed, yeah, it is available. If anyone's interested, you can get it from my website, AttilaTheStockbroker.com, or it's in Waterstones. Well, it's sold out in Waterstones at the moment, but I'm sure if you pestered them, they'll get some more in. Or you get it directly from me if you like. It's 35 years of my life doing my poetry and music all around the world and stirring up as much. And I'm just going to do a tiny bit here about one of the battles that I was really involved in. One of the battles that I'm most proud of and that we won, hands down, the battle to save our football club, Brighton Hove Albion. And this is, I was the PA announcer and DJ for 14 years and one of the leaders of the campaign to save the club. And this is just an amusing anecdote from our 2 years in exile at Gillingham. So many of you will be aware of the fact that Brighton Hove Albion spent 2 years playing our home matches 70 miles away in Kent for 2 years in the late 1990s. And at that time, I was the stadium announcer and I played the music. This is quite funny. The tunes I've been playing pre-match have been going down well with the Albion fans I talked to. And the whole idea of playing music that was as energetic as possible, to try and create some sort of pre-match atmosphere in a home ground 70 miles away, was a hit with Dick Knight and the club. It was an early kick-off on Boxing Day. We were bumping around second from bottom of the whole Football League with a team perhaps even worse than the one we had the previous season. We obviously had to set off really early to get to Gillingham for a 12 o'clock kick-off, and everyone was a bit bleary-eyed. So for the first time, I decided to play Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols. I'd been on for about a minute when a policeman burst into the box. Take that off, now! Why, I asked. But I could see that he was really angry, so I did, and I put the Clash on instead. You can't play that record at a football match, it's banned, it's on the list. What list? I asked. No one has ever told me there was a list of records I couldn't play. Well, it's obvious, isn't it? He shouted. It's obvious. I stood there, the Clash playing in the background, perplexed. It evidently wasn't obvious to me. The fact that we needed to explain further made him even more angry. It incites violence in the crowd. I thought for a few seconds. Well, officer, I said, I bought 2 copies of Anarchy in the UK in the black sleeve on EMI Records on the day that it came out in 1976. I've played it and heard it many, many times since, and not once has doing so given me violent thoughts of any kind whatsoever. I've also been to all 92 Football League grounds, and every time I've heard In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, I've had to restrain myself from committing serious acts of criminal damage. He didn't get a joke. A couple of days later, Brighton Hove Albion FC received a formal letter from Kent Police banning me from doing the PA at Gillingham any longer. Dick Knight phoned me up. I'm not having that job. He spoke to them, and the ban was rescinded on condition that I didn't play Anarchy in the UK again. So I didn't. I did play Smash It Up by the Damned, and I Fought the Law and Bright Light by the Clash. In the next couple of weeks, though, no policemen appeared in the box. Obviously, those 3 weren't on the list. Cheers. That's all from me. I wish you a great today. There's obviously a lot to talk about, a lot to reminisce about. I was there, trying to do my little bit too. I'm now towards the match, so all the best, comrades. See you later.
Thanks to local Southwick resident Attila the Stockbroker. I'm sure